Donald Potter, do you take this woman as your wife? In lies and silence for 1 year only? They said, I do. They didn't mean it. Until they did. She needed cash. He needed revenge. So they got married. Fake vows, real tension. 1 year to survive each other or fall for each other. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Weeks earlier. Rose Allen is behind the counter, her hands stained with ink and stress. She has no idea that the man about to walk in, posing as a broke consultant, is the heir to the empire that destroyed her life and her future fake husband. Rose stood in the middle of the penthouse like she'd just entered a museum, expensive, sterile, and not meant to be touched. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the skyline, drowning the room in golden light. But she couldn't feel anything. Not safety, not comfort, just distance. Donald walked ahead of her, hands in his pockets, not even pretending to offer a tour. "This is your room," he said, pausing at the second door on the left. "Separate bathrooms, separate lives." She nodded stiffly. "Works for me." They didn't speak again until dinner, which she cooked because he hadn't stocked anything beyond black coffee and sparkling water. He sat at the kitchen island, silently scrolling through something on his tablet. Rose dropped a plate in front of him harder than she needed to. "It's just pasta," she said, folding her arms. "Don't choke." He didn't look up. Noted. They ate in silence. The tension in the room was so sharp it could cut the pasta themselves. Afterward, she retreated to her room, only to emerge an hour later and find Donald sitting on the couch, reviewing documents. He glanced up just long enough to ask, "Any rules you'd like to set?" She crossed her arms. "No touching, no fake affection outside of public appearances, and no weird emotional speeches. We're business partners. Nothing more." "Fine by me," he replied smoothly. "Add one more. Don't ask questions about my past, and I won't ask about yours." "Perfect." They sealed the terms with silence. Over the next week, the rhythm of their arrangement began to form. Rose spent most of her time in the guest bedroom-turned-studio, trying to sketch again. But her pencil hovered over the page longer than it moved. Her mind was louder than her creativity. Every time she tried to draw, she heard her stepmother's voice. "You're not talented, you're just stubborn." Meanwhile, Donald spent late nights in his office, studying Allen Corp's financials, identifying pressure points, leveraging stock positions, all without her knowing. His plan was moving, quietly and efficiently. Their paths crossed occasionally, over coffee or in the elevator, or when she tripped on one of his designer rugs and mumbled a half-hearted apology. One night, they both reached for the same remote. "Movie?" he asked. She shrugged. "If it means I don't have to stare at spreadsheets or failed sketches for a night, sure." They sat on opposite ends of the couch. The movie played, but their eyes wandered toward each other. Not a word was spoken, but something flickered. Would you marry a stranger to survive, only to find out he's lying too? Comment what you think, subscribe, and turn on the notification button. The gold-embossed invitation had arrived 2 days ago, addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Donald Potter, a gala hosted by the city's elite fashion consortium. The kind of event Rose used to dream of attending, before her name became a stain in the industry. Now she was attending as someone's wife, someone she barely knew. The dress she wore wasn't borrowed or bought. It was hers, stitched by hand, fabric she'd rescued from an abandoned bolt at the back of her mother's boutique. Midnight blue silk, delicate lace at the collar, and a single cut along the back like a whisper. Her armor. When she stepped out of her room, Donald, dressed in a tailored black tux, looked up from his phone and for the first time said nothing at all. Just looked. His silence said more than any compliment could. "You ready?" she asked coolly, brushing past him. His voice came a second too late. Always. The gala was a blur of cameras, champagne, and perfectly controlled smiles. Their arrival turned heads. The press whispered. Guests stared. He placed his hand gently on the small of her back. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it, just enough for the flashbulbs. They smiled. They clinked glasses. They played their parts. But when his hand lingered a little too long, and when her eyes held his a little too tightly, the lines between real and fake began to blur. Later, Rose slipped away to the rooftop, breathless from the weight of the ballroom. City lights glittered around her like scattered stars. The night was cold, but her pulse ran warm. Donald followed a moment later, his jacket draped over one shoulder. "You disappeared." "I needed air," she said, turning toward the edge. "Didn't think I had to ask permission." "You don't." Silence stretched between them, thick and tense. Then he said it, soft, almost hesitant. "You look beautiful tonight." She glanced at him, unsure if it was part of the act. "You're not supposed to say things like that." "I know." Their eyes locked, and in that moment something shifted. He stepped closer. She didn't move away. The space between them narrowed, the city humming quietly below, the stars above. His hand rose toward her face, and she didn't stop him. But just as their lips nearly touched, she pulled back. "I should go inside." He nodded, eyes unreadable. "Yeah, me too." Back in his office the next day, Donald stared at a file newly dropped onto his desk. Caleb Allen, Internal Fraud Tracking. His jaw tightened. The first thread of the Allen empire was unraveling, but for the first time, he hesitated. Rose hadn't meant to find it. She was looking for a spare sketchpad. Donald had mentioned extra office supplies were in the side cabinet of his home office, but when she pulled the drawer open, a folder slid forward, unlabeled, thick, and far too heavy to ignore. Curiosity overrode caution. Inside, spreadsheets, emails, photos of board members, and financial transfer records. At the top, a file stamped in bold, Allen Corp. Strategic Acquisition, Final Phase. Underlined, Key Leverage Point, Rose Allen. Her hands trembled. A photo of her, clipped beside notes that mapped her every connection to the company, her value, her weaknesses, her role in his plan. The room spun. He found her pacing in the hallway, clutching the folder like it burned her. "You used me," she said, voice hollow. Donald froze. His expression flickered. Not guilt, not even shock. Just resignation. "I did what I had to do," he said quietly. "They destroyed my family, Rose. And I was just a tool to get to them?" He didn't answer. That silence told her everything. The fallout came fast. That night, Caleb and Fiona released the fake marriage contract to the press, likely tipped off by someone watching too closely. The tabloids ran wild. Fashion heiress scams. Her way back into society exposed. Rose Allen's deal. Marriage for money. By morning, paparazzi were camped outside the penthouse. Photographers screamed her name. Strangers hurled slurs as she tried to leave. Donald offered to handle it, but she brushed past him, barely holding back tears. "You already handled enough, don't you think?" She disappeared before sunset. Within hours, social media had turned her into a villain. Triad gold digger Rose, now fake wife scam. Her phone buzzed with endless notifications, but she answered none. Meanwhile, a press conference was scheduled, one Donald never planned on holding. He stood before the cameras in a charcoal suit, eyes sharp and voice cold. "My name is Donald Potter," he announced, "CEO of Potter Holdings." Gasps filled the room. "And the rumors about Rose Allen are false. If anyone is at fault, it's me." But Rose didn't see the conference. She was already gone. Somewhere no cameras could follow, carrying only a suitcase and a broken heart. She was just a pawn in his game. But now she's the target. What happens when the one person you trusted breaks you? The penthouse felt colder without her. Donald stood at the window, watching the rain blur the city lights. Somewhere out there, Rose had vanished. No messages, no updates, no trace. Just silence. He hadn't noticed how loud her absence would be. The smell of coffee without her presence at the counter. The empty couch during the late-night movies they never finished. The untouched second plate he still set out by instinct. Revenge had been the plan. Precise. Clinical. But now, it tasted like ash. The public was still eating her alive. Commentators called her a fraud. Former colleagues posted vague, condescending messages. Fashion houses pulled her designs from shelves overnight. Headlines labeled her the girl who faked a marriage for money, never mind the truth. Donald watched it all unfold and snapped. At his next media appearance, he interrupted a journalist mid-question. "For the record," he said sharply, "Rose Allen tried to expose Caleb Allen's financial misconduct 2 years ago, and her family disowned her for it. She didn't scam anyone. She got burned for doing the right thing." The room went still. "She was the only honest one in that entire company," he added, "including me." The clip went viral within hours. In a small coastal town, miles away, Rose sat curled on a worn couch in a rented studio apartment, the glow of her laptop reflecting off tear-streaked cheeks. She watched the clip 3 times. His words didn't undo the betrayal. But they didn't sound rehearsed either. He looked tired, unshaven, honest. She closed the laptop and stared out the window, the ocean wind rustling the cheap curtains. Why now? The next morning, Donald found a sketch tucked beneath a pile of untouched files on her old desk. One of her designs, half-finished, smudged in pencil, but brilliant. A note was scribbled in the corner. "Not good enough. Maybe I never was. R." He stared at it for a long time. Maybe it was time to stop trying to win and start trying to fix what he broke. Donald stood at the head of the long boardroom table, every seat filled with Allen Corp's shareholders, board members, and senior executives, most of whom had once laughed him out of meetings. Not today. He pressed a button on the remote. Screens lit up. Documents, transaction histories, and internal emails flickered across them, each more damning than the last. "Caleb Allen," Donald said, voice steady, "has embezzled over $15 million through shell accounts registered in offshore firms. The paper trail leads to every fake subsidiary he personally approved over the past 3 years. Gasps. Murmurs. Whispers turning into waves. Caleb, seated across the table, went pale. "This is a setup," he stammered. "You fabricated this." "I didn't," Donald cut in, cold. "But Rose Allen tried to warn you all. You buried her." He turned toward the board. "My legal acquisition of 31% of Allen Corp stock has been completed. Effective today, I'm assuming executive control, and I'll be cleaning house." Silence. No applause, just stunned faces and power shifting in real time. That's when she walked in. Rose. She stepped into the room like a ghost, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. Hair pulled back, no makeup, a dark blouse that swallowed the color from her skin. Donald froze. She didn't look at him. She looked at Caleb. Then the board. Then finally. The screen behind him, still frozen on the headline, "CEO exposes embezzlement and defends his wife." Wife. The word stung. Donald cleared his throat. "Miss Allen." Her gaze finally met his. Not angry, not warm, just unreadable. "I'm not here for you," she said calmly. "I'm here for what's mine." The board shifted in their seats. He nodded once, stepping back from the head of the table. "Then say what you came to say." And just like that, he gave her the floor. Not out of strategy, not out of guilt, but out of something that had grown too real to ignore. He watched her walk to the center of the room, spine straight, voice calm. As she spoke about rebuilding what her family tried to destroy, Donald didn't hear every word. All he could think was, he had taken the company, but lost the only person who made winning feel worth it. The next morning, Rose arrived at the Allen Corp building, expecting chaos. Instead, the receptionist handed her a sealed envelope with a gold crest pressed into the flap. From Donald Potter. Subject, ownership transfer, fashion division. She opened it in the elevator. The legal documents were clear. Full executive rights, controlling stake, and creative autonomy, all signed over to her. At the bottom, a handwritten note. "This belonged to you before they took it. Now it's yours again. No conditions, no catch, just closure." D. Her hands tightened around the paper, heart thudding as the elevator climbed. On the top floor, she found him alone in the conference room. No assistants, no board members. Just him, standing by the windows, watching the city he'd once wanted to burn. She stepped inside. "You're just giving it up?" Donald turned slowly. "It was never mine to begin with." "You planned this for years," she said, stepping closer. "Your father, the company, everything you lost." He met her eyes. No mask, no smirk, just exhaustion and something almost vulnerable. "I wanted to hurt them," he said. "I thought destroying them would fix what they did to me. But then I met you, and suddenly, it wasn't about revenge anymore." She swallowed. "And now? Now I want you to have the one thing they never gave you. Power, freedom, control. Everything they denied you because you dared to be better than them." He moved past her, walking toward the door. "I won't ask you to forgive me," he said, hand on the handle. "You deserve better than apologies and regrets." He opened the door. "Donald," she said quietly. He stopped. Her voice trembled. "What if I don't want the company? If it means losing you?" He turned back slowly. "Are you saying you'd stay?" "I don't know yet," she said. "But I know I don't want to walk away. Not without knowing what this could be. Without contracts or lies." He took a step toward her. "No strategies, no takeovers. Just us," she said. A silence settled between them, fragile, uncertain, but real. And then for the first time, she smiled. He walked away from revenge for her. But can she walk back to love? Drop your comment and keep watching. The office felt different now. Warmer. Alive. Rose stood at the head of the newly rebranded Allen Fashion Division, her name now engraved in gold on the glass wall behind her. The first collection she was overseeing would launch in 3 months. Her sketches lined the conference table. Staff actually listened. No whispers, no sabotage. It felt terrifying and perfect. For the first time in years, she wasn't surviving someone else's expectations. She was building something of her own. That evening, a package arrived at her new office. Simple brown paper, no return label, but the handwriting was unmistakably his. Inside was the original contract, the one they signed to begin their fake marriage. Ripped cleanly down the middle. Tucked inside was a letter. Just one line, written in black ink. You were never part of the plan. You were the reason I stopped needing one. D. She read it twice, then again. Her breath caught somewhere between a laugh and a sob. There was no pitch, no persuasion, just honesty. And for Donald Potter, that was everything. She left work early. Back at the penthouse, his penthouse, she didn't knock. She just walked in. Donald looked up from his desk, startled. "Rose?" She stepped forward. Same posture, same walk, same calm. But this time she was wearing the dress, the midnight blue silk from their first public event, the one she made herself, the one he never stopped thinking about. "You kept it," he said softly. "I redesigned it," she replied. "No more seams pretending to hold it together." He stood, slowly. "Why are you really here?" She didn't hesitate. "Because I never got to wear this dress the right way. Not when I said I'd do in a courtroom. Not when I played pretend at your side. I want one more chance." "To wear the dress?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "To mean it. No contracts, no strategies, no revenge, just them. And finally, truth." The city skyline shimmered gold beneath the setting sun, and once again, Rose stood on a rooftop in a wedding dress. But this time, she wasn't pretending. No contracts, no cameras for show, no silent distance between them. Just Donald. And this time, he was looking at her like she was everything he'd spent a lifetime chasing. Around them, friends and close colleagues gathered. Even a few press cameras were allowed, but not center stage. The focus was them. Not their legacy, not their empires. Just two people starting over. The officiant's voice was calm, gentle, and warm. "Donald Potter, do you take Rose Allen as your wife to love and to cherish, not for business, not for survival, but for life?" Donald didn't wait. "I do. With no end date this time." Soft laughter from the guests. Even Rose smiled through a tear. "And Rose Allen," the officiant continued, "do you take Donald Potter, schemes, scars, and all?" Rose met his eyes. "I do, because somewhere between the lies, I found the truth." As they exchanged rings, the same one he'd slid onto her finger that day at the courthouse, Rose glanced over her shoulder. Behind them, a shallow metal bowl flickered with fire. Inside, burning photographs, a copy of their old contract, the viral headlines, the news clippings from the scandal. Everything they had once built on deception, gone in flames. What remained was real. Donald gently held her hand as he slipped the ring into place. "I finally understand what forever means," he said. Rose leaned in, her forehead touching his. "Then let's live it." They kissed. No cameras needed to tell them how. No audience to impress. Only each other. Later, as the sun dipped behind the skyline and the music picked up, Rose pulled him to the side, her dress trailing like smoke behind her. "Did you ever think it would be like this?" she asked. Donald looked down at her. "No," he said honestly, "but I'm glad it is." They faked everything, until it became real. Share if you believe in second chances, because sometimes love was never the lie. Thank you for watching to the end. I believe you enjoyed it. We have a lot of other interesting stories like this lined up for you already, so click the image showing on your screen to watch the next. Don't forget to subscribe.